G'day guys, welcome to another Noble 9 video this week. I'm the Chief, here with Turtle. We are your one-stop shop for games, walkthroughs, tutorials, general shit talk and fuckwittery. Got a big show today. I'm going to be talking a lot of important things. Not as, I guess, a funny-ish show as last week, but an important show nonetheless. Just to note that we are a developing channel. We have no idea what we're doing. We're making up as we go. So some things will be rubbish, some things will be brilliant, and we'll find a happy medium along the way and go from there. Alrighty. Turtle, g'day, mate.
G'day, Chief. How you going today?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. A little bit buzzed. I'm about 3 deep. Perfectly ready to get started. So
Yeah, it sounds good, man. Kick a few back. Enjoy the Saturday.
100%. If you're not kicking back a few on a Saturday, like what are you doing with your life? So we're going to talk about a few things today. First thing we're going to address the Melbourne lockdowns. Massive developments with the inquiry being held this week. Obviously, the findings and stuff still have to be released, but this week we had a number of senior ministers, including the Premier, give their statements. So we're going to go through a fair bit of that because it has been requested a bit. So I guess here's your weekly news on that stuff. So Premier Andrews fronted the inquiry yesterday and pretty much managed to just handball the blame off to everyone else. Stuck with the party line of I don't know on everything, despite saying at the same time that the buck stopped with him. So I don't really think he understands what both those phrases mean because they're completely contradictory. Also, after that, he's thrown his health minister, Jenny Mikakos, under the bus, and she has, quotation marks, voluntarily resigned, which I think we all know is absolute fucking bullshit. So she'll be the scapegoat for Andrews because pretty much every time the bloke speaks, I mean, for anyone that watched it, he looked as if he was a puppy that was caught doing something wrong and had his tail between his legs. So to me, it's very clear that he knew about all this, and the situation down there is either one of incompetence, corruption, or just the wrong people doing the job. And they're too arrogant, and they've got too large an ego to admit they are. Yeah. So Turtle, your thoughts? You're the Victorian here.
Look, well, where I'm based in regional Victoria, it's not as bad as metropolitan Melbourne. But to say we're not hit by these restrictions is a complete and utter lie. We have been, and it has been quite frustrating to not know where we stand. And with this bullshit that Dan Andrews is going on about, it's hard to have faith in what he says. You know, there's just, as the chief has pointed out, you know, he's got rid of his health minister in quotation marks, and as you said, we all know what that is. So how can we trust him if he's actually getting rid of the person that is supposed to be informing him of these key points in the battle against the epidemic right now?
I don't know if you're aware, man, but so over the course of this inquiry, and if they get in before that, the government has had 10 senior bureaucrats, so 10 senior administrators, including the chief health officer, Professor Sutton, and the police commissioner, Victorian Police Commissioner, all get up and say, I'm not responsible, we're not responsible, we don't know whose decision this was, da 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 da. And this is for a range of things, primarily about the decision to hire private security companies to run the hotel quarantine. This is despite, and I have some first-hand knowledge of this because I've done a bit of work here in that industry. And I tell you what, it is not an industry that's equipped to deal with any sort of health crisis. You know, fortunately for me, I do have a bit of tertiary knowledge in this field now, a bit of medical training. To keep it simple, security officers are not the ones you want dealing with a fucking virus because they are so woefully inept and ill-equipped to do this that it's an absolute it's absolutely negligent to have hired them. Now, what I want to ask you, Turtle, is that so with everything that's going on with the inquiry, right? And now the first sort of domino in the Andrews government having fallen. So Mikakos having resigned with the knowledge that 99% of the confirmed cases for the second wave have come out of the hotel quarantine situation. What do you want to sort of happen going forward with the government? Do you want an election to be held? Do you want everyone involved in this to resign? Do you want Andrews and his lot to continue? What are sort of your thoughts, and what are the thoughts of sort of Victorians with this? Because there are polls that suggest that a lot of people do support Dan Andrews and everything he's done.
Yeah, so I think Dan Andrews should resign. He's our leader at this point in time, and is therefore responsible for the situation at hand. And like I said before, you can't have your health minister resigning, or quotation marks resigning, it, and not share the blame for that. At some point, if you're running something, you
Yep.
need to take responsibility. You need to. The buck stops with him, and if he's not taking um, the advice from the ministers and the health ministers and the chief officer, what's he doing? Is he just winging this as he goes along?
Yeah, so that's an important question because part of the inquiry yesterday, I forget exactly what her position was, but effectively the prosecutor, right, the person that deposed him. And if we have any legal minded viewers, I'm sure you'll tell me I'm fucking wrong on how to use those terms.
Hmm.
Um, in which case, fuck you, I don't care. Anyway, um, the person that essentially interviewed him asked him the question as to whether the financial incentives for hiring private security firms were part of the decision, as well as the health factors. And he admitted it. He came out and said, yes, they were a factor. I'm paraphrasing there, might I say, which essentially confirms the fact that there was pressure by multiple unions, which has always been a problem with Labor governments, always been a contention about corruption and integrity. There was pressure by those unions to get these positions to give Victorians work. Now, we're all for everyone being at work and employed, and that's whatnot, but I don't give the
Hmm.
keys to the nuclear warheads to a 6-year-old because it's only ever going to end one way. You have to put the appropriate people with the appropriate qualifications, the appropriate experience, the appropriate training into the appropriate positions when quite literally lives are on the line. And in this case, they have failed at least 750 times. Now, you mentioned there that the buck stops with him. I like that saying because Andrews himself uses that. I quote him and say, "The buck stops with me," and he says that repeatedly throughout the inquiry and in the weeks preceding. He says that, and yet later on in the inquiry, he places blame squarely on the shoulders of his health minister, and then she then resigns the next day.
How can you do
Well, that's
that?
the thing; it's a complete contradiction.
How can you as the leader of the state say, "Yep, I'm going to take responsibility"? Oh wait, hang on a minute. No, I'm going to hand pass it to the health minister. How can you make that decision and knowingly get up and do your job every day?
Well, actually, I think the answer to that's quite simple, man. It's that he has now he's been the Victorian Premier for quite some time now, right? Um, and this pandemic
Hmm.
situation has shown the country just how powerful state premiers actually are. I think what's happened is that he's become simply drunk on power. You know, positions of leadership, positions of power go hand in hand with corruption. Where there's power, there'll be corruption. And there's, for the viewers' sake, there's multiple different versions of corruption. We're not saying corruption is purely illegal activity, but you can be morally corrupt, you can be intelligently corrupt, you can be ideologically corrupt. I think what's happened here is that he's just become so drunk on his own ego, so drunk on his own power, so
Hmm.
drunk on his own importance that he's just unwilling to follow the evidence, follow the advice, and put his hand up sometimes and say he was wrong. Particularly with the case of the ADF assistance that was offered by the Prime Minister far earlier in the year.
Absolutely, absolutely. I I mean, you can back me up here, Chief, but I read somewhere that he refused it 3 times.
Yeah, so there's been three letters that have come out from the Prime Minister's office, directed to the Andrews office, offering ADF assistance three times over a number of months earlier in the year, starting from effectively March or May, I think, one of the two, right? Now, this is the exact same assistance, specifically to do with the contract tracing methodology they were using, the technologies that was offered to New South Wales. And that is why New South Wales, since now, caveat again, they had a massive fuck up with the Ruby Princess cruise ship,
Yep, agreed.
but since then, with all this new essentially this new way they're attacking and approaching the virus, they've gotten on top of the situation. Are they up where say Queensland is or WA whatnot? No, of course not. Why? Because their population's through the fucking roof. They're a lot more condensed, and also in terms of spreading communication and messaging, there's a lot the amount of different ethnicities and just different peoples with different languages and whatnot is a lot higher in New South Wales. So putting out messages in English, putting out TV ads or stuff on news.com or whatever isn't going to be the same for the family that don't speak any English that it is for say you and I. So that's much more prevalent in New South Wales. So that's why they're not doing as well, say in total as Queensland, but per capita they actually are doing very well because they're getting on top of every single case. That exact same assistance was offered to Victoria. The biggest example of that is with the contract tracing, right? That methodology is all digitized, right? So they carry around an iPad or whatnot, and all of their officers, all their enforcement officers have access to the complete database at their fingertips. They know what's going on. The Victorians are using in 2020, and you wonder why they couldn't get a handle on it.
Yeah, I mean, well, that just shows you how inept inept the Andrews government is, doesn't
I didn't even know you could still buy a fucking fax machine.
it? Well, he might have thought that it was all the information that he was collecting might have been a secret code. He didn't doesn't trust computers.
Well, who knows, man? I mean, socialists are in some weird shit. But look, the thing about this, man, we can talk about this forever, and I think we will be mentioning this for a number of weeks to come. So I'll give you the closing sort of statement, the closing discussion on this.
Yep, go for it.
No, no, like you. What's your opinion? You can finish this off,
Oh, sorry, I thought you were gonna go for it.
mate. I've talked way too much this opening bit already.
Look, I ultimately, mate, I just want to get back to some sort of normalcy. I want to get back to the times where I can go down to the shops and not have to be worried about wearing a mask. I would like to go back to a place where I can go to a sporting venue and actually go and watch, the games that I mean you and I love in football, and then for me personally, cricket. I just hope that the people of Victoria
Mhm.
take that on board and just, I guess, continue going on. Push through it. It's almost over. Give the last little push that it requires,
Yeah.
and then we can get back to what we all know and love.
Well, here. Bit of optimism to finish that segment. I like it.
All right, mate. Now on to a little bit of a light-hearted side of things.
Yes.
Grind my gears. What is
Yes.
bugging you in the past week since we spoke?
Right. Well, I know I spoke about road related stuff last week. I'm going to speak about road related stuff again. So I don't know if you've noticed, man, but so I do a fair bit of my work in the city these days. Unfortunately, not by choice. And part of my job is or one of my jobs is going to multiple different locations, right? And in the street, there's fuck all parking in the city, right? And I'm not going to pay for to park in big multi stories or whatnot. So I come to another site the other day, and um, this is at like midnight, right? So there's fucking no one on the roads, no reason for anyone to be there, and the street you can only park on one side of this street all times of night. Can only park on one side. the side that I have to park on, bloody fucking Queensland Rail. I don't know what they were doing, but they had about four vehicles there, right? Just four Hiluxes, about that. And I swear to God, they had taken, coned off, mind you, with cones, had coned off a space about 120-ish meters long. Took up all the parking space on that side of the road. The only way to then park if you were going to get to those buildings was to drive like 250, 300 meters down the road and take a turn to then get a parking spot for four fucking Hiluxes. And no one working, no one fucking do anything. One dude sitting there, one dude sitting in a fucking little Mazda. He's obviously the security for them, so nothing gets taken. And because I come out of this building at about an hour later after I finished doing what I was doing. Again, nothing had moved, no one was there. The fucking cars are just sitting there taking up space. Now I see this with dudes doing construction all the time or doing whatever, but why the fuck do these organizations, do these companies think they can just take up football fields worth of fucking public space for no good fucking reason? If you are doing something like, okay, if you're working in an area, right? Say like you're taking up some pavers and you're doing with cables underground. You know what you need? You need just squared. Do you take the squared space you're working in? You double it. That's the space you need. And you park your car to the side, right? And then if dickhead old parking inspector comes along, well, he'll see it's a government repairs or QQR or whatever they are, and he won't give you a ticket. You don't need the whole fucking street. You don't need the whole fucking intersection. You're like creating a bloody cordon so that no one's going to come in and protest you fixing up some goddamn telephone cables at night. Why do you need all this fucking space? You're just being selfish. You're just overdoing the WHS. Like, I'm sorry, but if I'm driving right on the left hand side of the road and you're working on the right hand side of the road, unless I'm absolutely retarded, there is no fucking chance I'm going to hit you. You could be wearing a fucking Batman like stealth suit, right? No chance I'd ever see ya. But the fact is, if you stay on your side of the road where you're meant to be, and I stay on my side of the road where I'm meant to fucking be, we're not gonna meet. I'm not gonna run you over. And if I do, then I'm a fucking idiot and I pay the price and I get done for manslaughter or whatever, and I go to prison. Fair enough. Justice is served. The world is equal. What isn't equal is me having to walk an extra fucking 100 metres or so, or 150 metres or so, at midnight when I can't be fucked being there at all, want to go to sleep, just because you want some extra fucking parking space. Go fuck yourself, you pricks. So what's grinding my gears this week, what's giving me the shits, is all these agencies taking up 2, 3, 4, 5 times the fucking space they actually need to do the job. You lazy pricks, you stupid WHS pricks, grow up.
Well, there you go, guys. Chief has had his rant on parking spaces. And it's a good rant, that one. He's done well.
I tell you what, like, there'll be another one on just like parking in cities later on. Fucking, that's a special. That'll go for a full hour. I swear to God.
Oh.
Oh, what's giving you the shits this week?
So, look, I don't know if I'm going to get as animated as the Chief did on his little section there. But what really is grinding my gears is actually the All-Australian football squad. Now, as I'm sure most of you are aware from if you watched last week's video, I am a one-eyed, biased Carlton supporter. I have no shame in that, none whatsoever. But how can the All-Australian selectors justify in picking Dusty Martin, Dangerfield as half-forward flanks and forward pockets? Granted, they played partly in the forward line, and they did. How can they justify picking them over someone like a Dan Butler, who's had a stellar year, and the other small forwards that have dominated throughout this year? How can they justify that? My next point of interest is how can you put Cam Guthrie and McRae on the fucking wings when they don't even play that position? How can you do that? I was reading somewhere that Guthrie played, I think it was 16 or 17% game time on the wings, right?
Yep.
That's less than a fifth of the time the entire season. And McRae, he played 4%. How can you how can you justify putting someone who's played 4% game time
Yep.
throughout the season and play him on a wing? What really shits me up the wall, and again, this is just because I'm a
Mm.
Carlton supporter, and I wholeheartedly believe Wiedering should have made the All Australian squad over Darcy Moore. I'm not doubting that Moore hasn't had a great year, because I'm sure he has. But Wiedering
Yep.
was the highlight of the Carlton year, as far as I'm aware. He was the standout defender in our team and should have been rewarded for his efforts. I just want to finish my little grind my gears section with, where do the All Australian selectors get off picking a side that's essentially full of midfielders for positions that they don't even play?
Yeah, man, 100% I agree with you. I think the problem is that the All Australian side now is essentially like it's a mini Brownlow sort of top 40, um, where they've got a list of guys and they're like, we have to include these guys, and positions are almost non-existent and not important anymore. So that's what they do. They chuck in guys and they go, oh, okay, so we saw Dusty play a little bit of time forward line. Fuck it, let's put him at full forward or forward pocket or whatnot, at the expense of guys like, as you said, Dan Butler, or in the case of Wiedering as well. So yeah, I think that's a justified grind my gears.
I just don't get it, mate. I just don't get it. All right, now on to another topic that, let's say we could have made an entire grind my gears video in this section, I believe.
Could have made a whole video on this.
But that, yeah, an entire video dedicated to this. But I think it would do us an injustice if we didn't let our rage and anger out when it comes to this. But the pre-ordering for the PS4 and the Xbox new gen consoles.
So
Take it away, Chief.
right.
Let me have it.
So first
Let
of
me have
all,
it. Just hit me.
first of all, viewers,
Fucking hit me.
Turtle here is talking about the PS5 and the Xbox Series X.
My
So let's just get that
bad.
correct. Let's just get that correct. All right. So the situation is this. Basically, you can't get either. Very, 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 very few people have been able to secure pre-orders for launch dates in early to mid-November. Number of reasons for this. So Sony went first with their release, and within the space of half hour, all the pre-orders were taken up, and Sony's been forced to, fix that situation. They're yet to exactly say how they're going to fix that situation. And then a couple of days later, Xbox released their one. Now, Xbox had a bit of a dig at Sony because Sony just unexpectedly put up their pre-orders, so no one sort of knew. Xbox didn't do that. They saw the schmozzle that was happening with Sony and said, we're going to tell you the exact day and time it's going to come up. And lo and behold, a shit ton more problems happen. So neither company's done this well. Neither company deserves any credit for this. Now, the reasons behind why we can't get any consoles is sort of multifaceted. One, bots. There are, unfortunately, gaming is no man. Unfortunately, gaming has become such a big industry now that it's such a lucrative
Mm-hmm.
industry for criminals and cyber criminal class to go after. So
Yep.
they have. So you have these bot networks that have just fraudulently placed all these pre-orders for the consoles with no intention of actually buying them. But
Yep.
what it simply means is that other people can't buy them. Now, to play that long game, that can manipulate companies' worth, so company stock prices, and you can actually make it into a bit of insider trading if you know what you're doing. And these criminals absolutely do that, which is a whole another video. Now, a whole another
Mm-hmm.
topic,
Yep.
because there's a lot of background to that. Now, the second issue
That's a
has
whole
been
nother
scalpers.
topic.
So if you go onto eBay today and you type in PS5 or Xbox Series X, what you're going to find is that the prices listed are fucking astronomical. The worst I've seen is an Xbox Series X for was 20 grand. Um,
Yeah, I can second that. I saw that as well, and the worst I saw of the PS5s was 16 grand.
Yeah, yeah. These are these are scalpers in the exact same way that say um, scalpers work at the grand final. So they'll get in there early as fuck. They'll buy a ticket for the list price, and then the desperate people come in the end. Oh, I really want to get in. Oh yeah, here's your ticket for $500.
Yeah, 200% of what they've
And
got.
there will be, yeah, yeah, there will always be some desperate sod that'll pay the money because they're just that desperate to get in the game and and see Geelong whoop Collingwood's ass or whatever. In this case, there'll be some desperate kid that uses his mum's credit
Hmm.
card and pays you
Yep.
5 grand. We see that all the time with kids with say Fortnite and your microtransactions. Same thing with COD. These things do exist. These kids do have access. These people do have access to money that isn't necessarily theirs. So you're going to have a lot of people that get ripped off out of a lot of money. Now, I spoke to an EB Games staff member earlier in the week about this, who confirmed the story about the bots and the scalpers to me. She's confirmed that EB Games and along with JB Hi-Fi both raised these issues with their connections to Microsoft and Sony in terms of procuring more stock for launch and pre-orders. And they've said Microsoft, and I can't speak for Sony because I'm not a PS gamer, so I don't give a shit what Sony's done. Um, but Microsoft is investigating all of their pre-orders. So anyone that's bought a pre-order, like half be prepared to have your pre-order cancelled because, yeah, Microsoft's going to go through this with a fine tooth comb and figure out if the people that have bought that particular console are actually a legitimate buyer or not. But that'll take time. Now, I know that both Microsoft and Sony have committed to extra consoles at launch for Xbox on November 10, I believe. Honestly, like who knows? It's a big logistical nightmare to do that. We are in the midst of Voldemort times, and you guys can figure out what that means. Yeah, but like it's 2020. Both these companies have had multiple consoles released. Demand has always been super high. Yes, this is the highest demand it's ever been, but fuck, when this should have been done a lot better than it has, because there's a very real possibility that I know I'm going on a bit, but there is a very real possibility that for the majority of gamers, you will not get access to next gen until 2021.
And that is just pathetic.
It is.
I I would like to go back to your points about the bots and the scalpers just quickly.
Sure.
How can how can two such massive companies like Microsoft and Sony not have the capability of recognizing what a bot is in their systems? You know, it boggles my mind that these companies they're allowing these criminals to set up systems which will buy 600 PS5s or Xbox Series X in an instant, or pre-order 600 of them, for then them to go and sell at a later date once they've actually got
Mm.
the consoles.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to defend these companies a little bit here. Unfortunately, in this realm, and again, like I have a bit of tertiary experience with this. Innovation lies with the criminal class. Even your big security companies, your Nortons, your McCaffreys, your things, companies like them, they're all on the back foot when it comes to cybersecurity. You have entire networks that exist in the Eastern Bloc, so Russia, Ukraine, as well as Chinese, North Korean cyber espionage and cyber crime networks. That this is their job day to day. They go to work at 9 in the morning and try and fuck with cyberspace for a profit because there are massive. I mean, this is the point that I alluded to with the stock manipulation because there are profits to be made. These are very complicated systems, very
Yeah,
complex and sophisticated networks across spanning the international breadth across multiple different levels. And this might only be one tiny aspect, like the bot network might only be one tiny aspect of this criminal organization, but it all plays a part. So yeah, I mean, 100%. Microsoft and Sony should have fucking foreseen this shit coming because, well, no shit. Now I look retrospectively, yeah, everything's no shit when you consider things retrospectively. But as to actually how they could have
Hmm.
defended against this, man, I don't have the answer.
Yeah, yeah. Look, that's far beyond my thinking. How do you stop? How do you stop these people or these criminals from hacking into things? It's just it's an uphill battle, that one, because
Well,
you fix one aspect, but then a leak occurs somewhere else, and then they target that leak, which will then open up into a waterfall. You
he's
fix that, and then boom, another little leak will appear somewhere else, and they just keep targeting and targeting and targeting.
100%, man. The only way I can think to resolve this is to just remove digital purchases altogether. So if you want to pre-order, you do it the way we used to do it. You go into store and you put a pre-order over the desk.
That would shut down a hell of a lot of companies.
Oh, 100% it would. And this
Like
is this
that
is
would
the
shut
problem.
down Amazon, eBay,
Yep.
Catch of the Day.
Yep.
All these huge companies that are just online trading, that would completely cripple them.
Yep. It would. And this is the issue, man. It's like, well, how do you fix this without? This is just what you're saying. You fix a leak here and you create a waterfall of problems over there. You're just shifting, or you,
Mm,
you you fix one problem just to create a whole bunch of new ones elsewhere. This is the thing. So you know,
mm,
in defense of Microsoft and Sony, I don't have the answers. I don't know. Hell of a task, but this is something they need to get on top of because the gaming industry is becoming just so fucking big these days that, and I mean, we see this fucking shit happening
yeah,
with Call of Duty 2 with the hackers that are rife in
yeah,
modern Warzone.
yeah.
We cannot have a situation where every major event in gaming now has some sort of controversy attached to it.
We should be better than that right now.
We should, but that's a far larger question. And on that topic, I
Yeah,
think we'll call it a day. If you're happy to call it a day, Turtle.
absolutely, mate. It's been an informative uh, 35 minutes, I think, mate. An informative 35 minutes, and I've quite enjoyed it.
It has, it has, mate. I haven't even cracked open the fourth. Haven't taken a breath. Haven't taken a
I know
breath the
you
whole
haven't
time.
shut up today.
Yeah, well, oh well. I don't care.
All
People should
right,
listen to
lads.
me.
That's Turtle and the Chief. We will sign off there, and we'll catch you soon. Peace out, lads.
Cheers, guys.